Now, this is of course going to be my weekly discussion video, where I bring up a topic, give my thoughts on it, and then open it up to all of you to share your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. And then next weekend, I'll make a follow-up video where I delve into those comments you left and discuss what you all had to say, bringing up some of the top-rated comments and others that I personally liked. Anyway, this week's discussion idea comes to us from the Brickmaster 2.0, who asked if we could talk about what the big reveal in Episode 8 might be, and not just the one about Rey, that we all know or are pretty sure is coming, but what might be revealed about the Force itself in this episode, what we might learn about it that either expands our understanding of it, or begins to change what we thought we knew. And first of all, we obviously don't know with 100% certainty that some type of big reveal about the Force is indeed coming, but there have been some clues. Not the least of which was when Luke said in the first teaser trailer that it's so much bigger, after Rey talked about how she sees the light, the dark, and the balance. But what in the world could that mean? How could the Force be bigger than what we've already learned about it? Because we do already know it's essentially made up of two parts, and that there's a pretty simple and straightforward cycle that dictates the entire Star Wars galaxy. There's the living Force, which as the name implies, makes up all life, and then there's the cosmic Force, which is basically the part that, as Yoda and Obi-Wan told Luke, is the part that surrounds, binds, and penetrates everything. It holds the galaxy together so that those luminous beings that make up the living Force have bodies to exist in and something besides a nothingness, like planets for example, to live their lives upon. And then when something dies, it ceases to be part of the living Force and joins with the cosmic Force and loses its sense of self, except for in the rare case of a Force ghost, of course. Then when new life is born, that energy comes forth from the cosmic Force, until it too eventually dies and once more goes back to the cosmic Force. Again, it's a pretty simple and straightforward cycle that doesn't leave much room or really need much embellishment. Where things of course start to get tricky is when you factor in those who are Force sensitive, because we really have no idea how or why certain individuals have the ability to control the Force to varying degrees. And you might say, didn't George Lucas explain that in Episode 1 when he talked about midichlorians? But no, he really didn't. Because all midichlorians really do, if you have a large enough concentration in your cells, is allow certain individuals to hear the will of the Force. That's it. That's actually all that's ever been established that they do. And yes, you can infer, thanks to Anakin the Chosen One having such a high count, higher than even Master Yoda, who is regarded as the most powerful Jedi ever, that the more of them that you have in your cells, the stronger you are with the Force, or the more potential you have when it comes to using or controlling the Force. However, even though midichlorians are not as bad as most people think they are, because a lot of people mistakenly think they generate the Force or something along those lines, I just don't see them ever being brought up again anywhere in Star Wars, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in my opinion, and not because I hate them or I think they ruin Star Wars or anything like that, but because the way George Lucas introduced and used them in Episode 1 begins to quantify the Force, or allows you to begin to figure out Force potential by just doing a simple blood test, which is the quickest, easiest way to suck all the great mysticism right out of Star Wars and turn it into a numbers game. So what I think the big reveal about the Force is going to be, and yes, I do think one is coming, is that we're going to learn, as Han almost unintentionally teased in The Force Awakens, that that's not how the Force works. In other words, Luke has learned something at the First Jedi Temple about the Force that has long since been forgotten. Something that, though it won't be presented this way exactly, lets us know it's not about how many midichlorians you have in your cells that makes you strong with the Force, it's something else entirely. What could that be exactly? Well, to be honest, that's damn near impossible to guess at, but something tells me it's almost certainly going to have something to do with balancing the Force and how that's actually achieved, which is likely what Rey's purpose also is, to bring a lasting balance to the Force. Because Anakin did fulfill the prophecy when he turned back to the light and destroyed Palpatine. He did bring balance to the Force by simply destroying the Sith. And I know there are some that will say he didn't do it because there were still Jedi left, that being Luke of course. But George Lucas has always said that the existence of the dark side itself is what caused imbalance, that it's not equal parts dark to light. And the problem actually is that the dark side, as Palpatine himself said once, is unnatural. It wreaks havoc on the delicate cycle I spoke of earlier between the living and the cosmic Force, whereas a Jedi who carries out the will of the Force itself by heeding the midichlorians causes no such imbalance since it's actually acting on behalf of the Force to maintain that balance. However, as is clearly the case since here we are only 30 years later and the fate of the galaxy is again in jeopardy, the balance Anakin and or Luke helped bring about at the end of Return of the Jedi didn't last very long. especially not in cosmic terms where 30 years would be looked at as less than a blink of an eye. And when you factor in some comments made by Mark Hamill a while back when he said that Luke thought that maybe Ben Solo might be the chosen one, well, that tells me that the ending of Return of the Jedi will be rendered pretty much null and void, and that the balance must be achieved another way. And setting aside my thoughts and feelings on that possibility about radically changing what the ending of Return of the Jedi meant, I think what the big reveal might be, though many will not see it as a reveal as much as a confirmation of sorts of something they've always thought or wanted, is that achieving a lasting balance through the absence of darkness is impossible, since darkness is always going to rise again. Now, again, setting aside my own personal thoughts and feelings on such a change, I think Luke may believe that the Jedi need to end because the Jedi shun the darkness, and, to put it bluntly, that is never going to work in the long run. That's never going to bring a lasting balance. Whereas a control or mastery of the dark side may be what's needed instead. And I'm not saying they're going to blatantly use the dark side and become like gray Jedi, but I think there's going to be an acceptance that it is and always has to be a part of the Force. And I can even see a scene where Luke tells Rey that the Jedi trained him to believe that just starting down the dark path will forever dominate your destiny, but if they'd instead trained his father, Anakin, to learn how to control his dark half, instead of trying to completely reject it, he may have never fallen in the first place and become Darth Vader. And along those same lines, if he hadn't tried to train Ben to reject his dark half, he wouldn't have lost his nephew to the dark side and watched him become Kylo Ren. And after that turn, that's when Luke went looking for the first Jedi Temple to learn how they did it, to see if they too had rejected the darkness, or if, as time had gone by, the arrogance of the Jedi had led them to believe that they were strong enough to completely resist the dark side, which is where we find the Jedi during the prequels, and we of course know how badly those Jedi failed. So my guess for the big reveal about the Force, and yes, I do think there will be one, though my guess may be way off here, is that Luke has gone to the first Jedi Temple and learned that the Jedi of old did not reject the darkness per se. They'd learned to accept it could never fully be destroyed, and that it needed to be, shall we say, managed, and the best way to do that was to not completely reject it. And how do I feel about this change? Should I turn out to be right or even close to it? Hard to say until I see how it's presented and worked into the overall story, because in a sense, you have to explain why George Lucas's version of the Force, how it worked and what balance is, was wrong. And by doing that, by saying there either was never balance after Return of the Jedi, or that it only lasted a short amount of time, you run the risk of not only ruining the near-perfect ending of Return of the Jedi, but rendering the first 6 episodes of the Star Wars saga irrelevant, because it was meant to show how the Force was brought back into balance by Anakin Skywalker. And if those first 6 episodes didn't do that, what did they do? Just set up the sequel trilogy where we're really going to learn how to achieve balance? Well, that's all I've got for you this time, but now I want to open it up to all of you in the comments below, where you can tell me if you think we're going to get a big reveal about the Force, and what that reveal might be. And then next weekend, I'll do a follow-up video going into all of your thoughts on the matter. So please, leave your comments below, and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.